11 herbs and spices. Everybody knows that number. It's printed on the bucket, it's in the ads, and for 80 years it's been the answer to what makes KFC different. 15 pounds per square inch. It's a pressure reading, and it comes off a patent Harland Sanders filed in 1962. A patent that lays out, step by step, exactly how to cook the chicken. No vault, no mystery. Just a machine doing something to a piece of meat that an open fryer physically cannot do. Search KFC factory, and you'll get 100 videos walking you around a gleaming production line. They all have the same small problem. KFC doesn't own a chicken plant. Not one anywhere on Earth. Those are very confident tours of somebody else's building. So where does the chicken come from? What happens inside that sealed pot? And why was the famous recipe finished a full year after the machine that made it necessary? Let's follow one piece of chicken from the barn to the bucket. Start with who owns the bird, because it isn't the company on the sign. In the United States, KFC buys chicken from suppliers like Tyson Foods, Pilgrim's Pride, and Koch Foods. The industry calls them integrators, and the word is literal. One company owns the hatchery, the feed mill, the plant, and the trucks. The one thing it usually doesn't own is the farm. The farm belongs to a contract grower. The farmer puts up the barn, pays the power bill, does the labor, and lives with the smell. The integrator supplies the chicks, supplies the feed, sets the veterinary protocol, and decides the pickup date. So the farmer owns the building and the debt. The company owns the chicken. And here's the strange part. They're the same birds almost everywhere on the planet. Two companies supply the genetics for most of the world's meat chickens, Aviagen and Cobb Vantress. Bloomberg looked at this last October. Aviagen's Ross 308 and its close relatives account for roughly 2/5 of the 22.5 billion broilers alive on any given day. Cobb Vantress, which supplies most of the rest, is owned by Tyson. So the company selling KFC the finished chicken also drew up the blueprints for it. That's either beautiful vertical integration or a very small room with no doors, depending on the mood you're in. A day-old chick leaves the hatchery at about 40 grams. That's a golf ball. Somewhere between 32 and 42 days later, it's a little over 2 kilos, and it's on a truck. And you'd assume a chicken destined for KFC is bred to taste like KFC. There's no secret KFC bird. What those strains are selected for is a list that flavor never made. Growth rate first, and it has been first since the 1950s. Then breast meat yield, then feed efficiency. Taste isn't on the list anywhere. Put a fast-growing bird against a slow-growing one in a blind tasting, and the fast bird loses. Decades of breeding for size quietly cost the meat its flavor. What the bird is bred for is a number on a scale. KFC's chickens are processed inside a narrow live weight window, somewhere around 2 to 2.5 kilos, and that window is not an accident. A drumstick off a 2-kilo bird and a drumstick off a 4-kilo bird want different cooking times, and the fryer only knows one. Every restaurant runs the same clock, so every bird has to be the same size. So the bird is bred to be consistent. The flavor has to come from somewhere else, and that's a problem a man in Kentucky solved in 1939. That truck is where the process everybody films begins. Everything about a poultry plant is built around a chain moving at a fixed speed, and every step has to finish in the seconds it gets before the next bird arrives. Birds come in and go through the part nobody films. They're stunned and killed, and it takes seconds. Then scalding and plucking, then the carcass is opened and the organs come out. And this is where a federal inspector is standing. Every single bird that goes past gets looked at by a person all day at line speed. That inspection is written into U.S. law, and the plant cannot legally run without it. Then the chill, which is a race against bacteria. Some plants run the birds through a long tank of chilled water. Others use a cold air tunnel. Water is faster and cheaper. Air leaves a drier skin, and skin moisture matters enormously when the next thing to touch that chicken is flour. Wet skin plus flour gives you paste. Nobody in the history of the drive-thru has ordered paste. Then the cut-up. A whole chicken becomes 8 pieces. 2 drumsticks, 2 thighs, 2 wings, 2 breast halves. That's the standard American cut, fixed long before anybody put it in a bucket. And it's the reason a bucket holds the pieces it holds. The machine is called a cone line. The carcass gets pushed onto a metal cone, and rotating blades take it apart in a fixed order. The same way every time, thousands of times an hour. It is the least romantic object in this entire video, and it is extraordinarily good at its job. Samples go off for pathogen testing. Everything else gets weighed and boxed. Then the boxes go out chilled, sitting a degree or two above freezing, and they stay in that state right up until somebody cooks them. KFC's on-the-bone chicken, the original recipe and extra crispy you order by the piece, arrives at the restaurant fresh. Some other things on the menu don't. Tenders and fillets can come in frozen, but the bone-in chicken is delivered cold and raw, and that one choice drags an entire network along behind it. Frozen chicken keeps for months and travels on a slow truck to anywhere on the continent. Fresh chicken has a clock running on it from the moment it leaves the plant. It means refrigerated deliveries several times a week to every restaurant. It means the plants and the restaurants have to sit inside a certain driving radius of each other, which quietly dictates where the company can even open a store. And it means a plant somewhere is running to a schedule set by how much chicken one city will want on a Friday night. Somebody's actual salary job is forecasting your Friday. All of that happened before KFC touched the chicken at all. Corbin, Kentucky, in the 1930s. Harland Sanders is running a dining room bolted onto a service station, and he has a timing problem. Pan-fried chicken is the good version. It's also 30 minutes in order. Fine if you're a restaurant people drive to on purpose. Fatal when you're a stop on the way to somewhere else, because a traveler eats wherever the food is ready. Deep frying was the obvious answer, half the time. But it dried the meat out and cooked it unevenly, and Sanders wouldn't put it on a plate. Then in 1939, the first commercial pressure cookers reached the market. These were sold for steaming vegetables, gentle things, carrots. Sanders bought one, took it home, and filled it with hot oil. Then he dropped in a piece of floured chicken and locked the lid, which is a sentence the manufacturer would have paid good money to prevent. It could have taken his eyebrows off. It didn't. 8 or 9 minutes later, he pulled out chicken that was cooked all the way through and still wet in the middle. Now the part that gets left out. The 11 herbs and spices weren't finished until July 1940. The machine came first, by a full year. Sanders built that blend for a piece of chicken that was already coming out of a pressure vessel, and a coating steamed under pressure behaves nothing like a coating fried in an open pan. The recipe was designed to suit the machine. The most famous secret in fast food is, chronologically speaking, an accessory. He knew exactly what he was holding. In September 1962, he filed a patent on the process. It was granted in April 1966. United States Patent 3,245,800, filed under a title with no poetry in it whatsoever. Process of producing fried chicken under pressure. I went and read it. It's a short document, it reads like a recipe card, and it has been sitting in a public database for 60 years while everyone argued about the spices. It gives you the temperatures. The chicken arrives at the store raw in a chilled box, and a person takes it out and breads it by hand. That's an actual job on the shift rota. There's a breading table with a tray of seasoned flour, and the worker presses each piece down into it, rolls it, lifts it, shakes off what didn't stick, presses it again. 7 pieces to a rack, over and over, straight through the lunch rush. In a company that has automated almost everything it could reach, that step is still a pair of hands and a tray of flour, and it's why the crust on original recipe comes out uneven. Thick where a fold of skin caught the flour, thin and tight over the end of a drumstick. An industrial coating line does the opposite. It produces identical, then the fryer, and here's what Sanders' own patent describes. First a brown, 350 to 400 degrees Fahrenheit, 1 to 2 minutes, lid open. That sets the outside of the coating so it stops drinking oil. Then the lid comes down and locks. Pressure climbs to 15 pounds per square inch. The oil settles at around 250 degrees, and the chicken cooks for about 8 minutes. Chicken is mostly water. In an open fryer, that water reaches its boiling point, turns to steam, and leaves, which is why open frying is a race between cooking the middle and destroying the outside. The surface dries out first. It always dries out first, and every fried chicken recipe you've seen is an attempt to work around that. Seal the vessel and raise the pressure, and you raise the boiling point of the water sitting inside the meat. It climbs well past 212 degrees and stays liquid. It stops escaping, and instead cooks the chicken from the inside, as steam with nowhere to go. And look at what the oil is doing while that happens. 250 degrees is cold for frying. Most deep frying runs at 350 or better, because below that, the food just sits there drinking oil. Here, the pressure is doing the work heat normally has to do. The oil is barely participating, so the outside crisps at 400 degrees, and the inside cooks at 250, wet at the same time in the same piece. You cannot get there with a deeper pan, hotter oil, or better technique. You need the seal. That's the thing Sanders patented, and it's why a piece of KFC and a piece of home-fried chicken are different objects. Cooked chicken then goes into a holding cabinet with a timer running on it. When that timer hits 0, that chicken's career is over. The bucket is engineering too, and it's older than most of the menu. A franchisee named Pete Harmon sold the first one in 1957. A stack of hot fried chicken is a product that attacks itself. Every piece throws off steam, and steam trapped in a closed box condenses back onto the crust and turns it to paper. The bucket exists to hold 14 pieces in a shape that keeps the steam moving instead of letting it settle on the food. Tall, round, loose lid. Somebody was paid to work that out, and they earned every cent of it, which brings all of this back to you and to something you can check yourself the next time you open one. Pick up a piece and look at the coating where it runs over a joint. You'll find ridges, little raised seams where the flour folded over on itself, and thin worn patches where somebody's thumb pressed harder than the rest. Hand breading leaves fingerprints. A machine line can't fake that because a machine lays down an even shell every single time. Then work out what you're holding. A drumstick has one straight bone and dark meat. A thigh has a flat bone through the middle, also dark. A breast piece has a broad curved bone with a strip of rib along one edge, white all the way through. The wings are unmistakable, and there are only ever 2 of them in there. Do that once, and you can reverse engineer an entire cut-up line from a cardboard box on your lap, which is the last 4 inches of a supply chain that started in a hatchery 5 weeks ago. So the blend came second. A man bought a vegetable steamer, filled it with oil, worked out that pressure cooks a chicken in 9 minutes, then wrote a recipe to suit the machine. The spices are the part he was happy for you to look at. Settle something for me down in the comments. Thigh or drumstick? There's a correct answer, and I want to see the numbers. One last thing. Sanders' problem was speed, a food that takes half an hour, made to land in minutes, and he beat it with pressure. 40-odd years later, McDonald's hit the same wall with chicken and went the completely opposite direction. They kept the boneless white meat and threw the bird's shape away, and every nugget that leaves that system is one of 4 molded forms. How they got there and what else is riding along in that box is on your screen now.